This video will be covering Programming Merit Badge Requirement 5A. Programming Merit Badge with Scouts BSA Requirement 5A is choosing a sample program, which I'm going to define here in the video. And we're going to talk through that program, modifying the code, adding a function to it, and working through a program. We're going to choose Python. The program we'll be working with is over here on the right, but we'll go through it line by line in a little bit. B and C and D are something that I would like to work through with you because you choose a different language. And so I think the best way to learn these is actually to do these either on your own or with me. And I'm happy to do this with you over a call, we can schedule a virtual meeting with myself and another adult, of course, and we would work through two other languages besides the one that we do today, which is Python. So this is the program that we're going to go through, but to get an idea about why I chose this sample, I thought we could look at why you would do something like this on the right. On the left-hand side here is my daughter's email. And my daughter's email is, she's only 10 years old, and so a lot of it is, just advertisements and things that you can see, words with friends. And so we see a lot of words with friends account. Let's say that you had a similar type situation in your email, and you wanted to mark the words with friend emails as important to you because you really like words with friends. So you want to make sure that you have a group just for those. Well, Gmail has a way to do that that is very similar to what we're going to write. So in the settings in Gmail, you can define a filter that is basically a if it has something, then do something, right? So let's say in our filter, we're going to say if it has words with friends in the email, then we're going to create the filter. It's going to ask us what we want to do with it. Let's choose to apply a label, like a bucket, and we're going to create a new label called words with friends bucket. We create that label, and then we say, let's create a filter with that. Great. So we created a filter, and Gmail says it's there. Now let's test it. Let's make an email. I'm going to send it to myself. So I send it to here, and I say, this is a test email and words with friends. I put words with friends, and so I would expect that this email gets picked up by the filter and puts a little label on it that says words with friends bucket. So let's test it. I send it to myself. It says it's sent. Wonderful news. We go to the inbox and I see this is a test email. Great. I click on it and I see that it has now added words with friends bucket. And that's because it had this set of words in it, right? So, deep within Google's code, the basic idea is still the same. It looks and says, if it has the thing that you wanted, which is the string words with friends in the email, then it adds a label. And that's very similar to what we're about to do over here with Python. So with that, let's take a look. And this is our example program, but we're going to go through it a line at a time. And so we're going to go to a site that I will give you down there in the YouTube comments that's called Online GDB, which is a fancy word for it's a website that you can use to run and compile Python code, which is what we're going to do here. And so let's, I copied and pasted it, but let's actually get rid of it. And we'll make a brand new project here. And we're going to choose Python. Okay, so this has a sample Python program, a very simple one. Let's make it a bit smaller, easier to see here. And all this does is print hello world. So that's a very simple program that we're going to run so we can just make sure we understand the basics. And it says hello world, about like you would expect, right? So to build this program up on the left from the one on the right, let's copy and paste, and we're going to copy and paste just a little bit at a time. So let's replace whatever is over here on the left with just a simple statement of our own. That way we know where the program is. So I hit run. It says this is the start of the program. That's what we expect. Okay, great. Now let's go through and we're going to create some fake emails that we're going to search through. So let's copy and paste. We're going to copy and paste this business here. Okay, so concentrate just on lines 3 and 4. On line 3, because it starts with this little hashtag character, that means that it's a comment. So that means that you can put anything here and the program won't get mad. Programmers use these in order to be able to communicate with each other and to remind yourself later about why a line exists. So here I'm just using human language, no special words to say make an array with no data. And I can put my name is Scott, and I can put anything in here and it won't get mad whenever it tries to run it because it has that little hashtag in front of it. On the next line, it doesn't have a hashtag, so it means that it's going to interpret it as what has to be good words in your program. And I'm going to say emails, which is a new variable that I'm saying now exists. And I'm going to assign emails to be equal to these little brackets. So it's these little brackets here, open, close. What that means is that I want to make a new array. An array is a bucket of data. You can put things in the bucket, you can take things out of the bucket. It's just a bucket. That's all an array means. And so I'm going to add 3 things to that bucket. And in Python, the way you do that is you say the variable you want to use as the bucket, and you can say append for that bucket, because append means that I want to add to it, right? Append. So I'm going to add 3 different things to our bucket here. And I'm going to add, let's make this big so we can see it. I'm going to add 3 different strings. A string is just a fancy word for, it's a set of characters that you put inside of quotes. And so you begin with a quote and end with a quote. So you can see here that on the left, I said I to begin the string, and then at the end of the string, I ended it with a exclamation point and another quote here. That's saying that I'm adding that string to emails, and then I just do that 2 more times. So I say, just a silly string, and then on the second one, this is important, I put the words with friends, because that's what we want to try and find, right? So I have words with friends. And then on the last one, I have, it's just a silly email of you've been selected with a $4 trillion gift card. Please reply with your address, phone number, and social security number, things that you should never give out, right? So it's a spam email. The second one's important though, because it has words with friends in it. So that's the one that we need to find. On lines 11 through 13 here, this is just to help us, but it's how we're going to search the emails in a little bit. But right now, it's just to help us by printing out whatever is in emails so we know, as we're debugging it, what is in those. So this says, for each email in the emails variable. And this is trying to say that you have a bucket of emails and everything that's in it, I want to go through it. And for each one that I go through, I'm going to call that email. That's the variable. For each email in email, so there's 3 of them, we're going to print a dash dash, and that's just for us to, it'll become more clear in the printout about why we do that, but it's just to help us see where we are in the printing. And then we're going to say variable email, so for each one of these, equals, and then a %s. This %s is the way of telling Python that I want to give it a variable, not just something that I type. It's something that can change. So this email right here is something that changes every time it goes through the for loop, right? So we would expect that whenever this runs, it should run 3 times, and it should print a dash dash every time, and also a variable email equals, and then each one of these that we appended to the email's variable a few lines before. So if we run this, what do we expect happens? We expect that we see, this is the start of the program because that was up here. We see emails only whenever we print them. These lines don't get printed. This is where it's just assigning the variables, and this is code. So it doesn't necessarily get printed. These are things that are happening in the background. The for loop is what actually does the printing. So then the next things that we see as humans on the output is we see a dash dash right here on line 12. And then line 13, we see variable email equals, and then you see that open little quote, and it says, hi, this is Mr. Refrigerator. That's our first one. Hi, this is Dad. Would you like to play Words with Friends? Remember, that's the one we're looking for. So we'll add code for that. And then the last one is the silly email that does not have Words with Friends in it. So we want to ignore that one. Okay, so let's go back and we're going to add a little bit more to this program and search for Words with Friends. So we're going to add this. So the code that I just added is really what does the very important part of the program. And in the program, I've now added if words with friends in the email is this if statement here. So this says if words with friends is in the email. So in other words, if these three words together with a space in between them are present in the text of that email, then we should do something. And that's what this little colon means, is that then, if that is true, then we print it's a match, and we should add the label. If it is not in the email, if these three words are not together in it, otherwise we should print this, not a match, not adding the label. So if we run this, what do we expect? We expect that on the first email, it will not see it, and it should say not a match. On the second email, it should find it because it's right there. And then it should print it's a match. On the third email, it should not find it because words with friends is nowhere in this big long string. So it should print not a match. So if we run this, we expect that it should print not a match the first time, it's a match the second time, and on the third time, not a match. So it did what we expect, right? Debugging is whenever something doesn't go right and you have to figure out why it did what it did. Let's say that we had made a mistake, and when we were typing the program, we had put words with friends, but we accidentally misspelled it. So now, if we run this program, it's going to print not a match for all three times that it prints it, because words with friends, where we accidentally misspelled it, is not in this string. It has words with friends, which is spelled correctly. So debugging is the exercise of going through your program and figuring out what went wrong that could cause that. The way that I would debug something like this is I would probably start something simple, and I would say, well, is words with in the email? Because maybe I misspelled something, maybe it didn't like something about that string, so let's try this. So I modify it, I run it again, and it says it's a match. Oh, okay, well that means I fixed something, right? That's because words with is still in the string here. Now if I add words with FR, it should still find it because, excuse me, this set of words is still in here. And it's important to notice it doesn't have to be a word, it can just be any characters put together, and that's a string, is any characters put together. So even though we're just spelling words with FR, it still is contained within here, and therefore it should match. So let's run it one more time. We ran it, and on the second time it says it's a match. Wonderful. So now we know that it must have been something in how I spelled it. So now I correct the spelling. I run it again, and it should say it's a match. So that's an example of fixing and debugging a program. And let's do one last thing that it calls out in the requirement, which is that you define a function in order to do something. A function is a set of instructions that you maybe want to call over and over again. So it's something that you don't want to have to rewrite every time. So let's say that I want to print a really long string every time I go through that for loop, but I don't want to have to type that long string every time, or maybe do some math. Just as an example, we're going to define a function. That's what def in Python means. And we're going to call this my function. That's what we'll call the function. And we're going to say, every time that this happens, I want to print, and we're going to print supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, close enough. So if I wanted to be able to call my function, let's say, in different places in the program, I could do that now. I could say my function, by putting this little open parenthesis and close parenthesis, it says to call that function and do whatever it says. So as an example of also understanding how comments work, let's go through here, and we're going to highlight these, and we want to put comments in front of them. And we'll just keep it simple here. Let's just go through each of these lines here. We're going to put a comment in front of it so we can stop it from printing or doing anything. So now that all of that above is commented out, the only thing that we should expect is that it prints supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Let's see if it does that. Oh, we made a mistake. It says that my function has invalid syntax. Invalid syntax is a program's way of saying, I don't like something that you did whenever you defined that program because it doesn't line up with how Python is supposed to work. So let's try and fix it. I know that in Python, in order to declare a function, you have to use not just the function name and a colon after it, but you have to put these little parentheses because that's how you call it as well. So let's run it and see if that fixes it. There, it fixed it. Wonderful news. So the function can not only be called once, but it could be called later. So if I print after my function, we did it, run the program, we would expect to see we did it afterwards, right? And then if I just wanted to call my function again without having to say print supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, I could just paste in my function, and what we will see here is supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. We did it, which is right here, and then my function is printed again. It calls it again and prints supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. And so that's the basics of requirement 5A, which is what we did here. So I'm going to consider 5A done, but 5B and C and D still need to be done by you. And I'm happy to work through these with you. We can choose different languages, and I will work through this with you. So let me know of a good time, and we will schedule a virtual meeting, have another adult attend, and we'll work through some other languages of your choice, and we'll get B and C and D finished off.